Hello everybody, and welcome to another episode of Better Late Than Never, a series where I play a bunch of old games and analyze them from a modern perspective. Now, in the last episode, we jumped into the world of cult classics to discuss Mirror's Edge, and I kinda wanted to keep that theme going. So today, we're looking at Double Fine's 2005 classic, Psychonauts. Now, I remember seeing this game for the first time like a decade ago and being mesmerized by its unique look and feel, but for some reason I just kinda never got around to it. Well, I changed that, and now I've got some observations to load into your ear holes, so here we go. These are my 3 biggest takeaways from Psychonauts. Number 1, I really missed the 2000s era 3D platformer. Last week, we talked a bit about trends in gaming. I noted how parkour-style gameplay was popular in the mid-2000s, but died out by the 2010s. Well, here's one trend that I miss: character-driven 3D platformers. Now, I grew up with a PlayStation 1, and I remember those days really fondly. Crash Bandicoot and Spyro the Dragon were essential games for me growing up. But as consoles have progressed, it kind of feels like developers have moved away from cartoony platformers to better take advantage of updated graphics, and that means more games grounded in gritty realism. Psychonauts felt like the games that I loved as a kid. I instantly remembered the days of unique power-ups, inventive platforming, and endless seas of collectibles. But more than anything, I remembered the days where my protagonists weren't just strong and silent badasses who shoot big guns. The characters of Psychonauts are filled with unique personalities that influences the game's entire tone. I think it's easy to write this style of game off as meaningless kid stuff, but ultimately, I think that anything that helps activate our imaginations is just as valuable as a game with a capital T theme. Now, but there's one thing I don't miss about this type of game, and that's that, number 2, I really don't miss the 2000s era 3D platformer camera. Okay, this is a pretty simple-minded observation, but good God, can we pause for a moment and appreciate how far in-game cameras have come? It's something I take for granted nowadays, but wow, it's just such a nice luxury to be able to see your damn character or where you're moving to in 3D. Psychonaut falls into this classic problem, but it's hardly the worst offender. The transition from 2D to 3D had some real growing pains that makes a lot of those old games not hold up very well. And that makes the sudden revival of this type of game all the more frustrating. The genre's kind of getting this second chance now thanks to games like Yooka-Laylee and Snake Pass, but while they bring back mechanics that we loved in the 90s, they don't go out of their way to fix problems that these games suffered from. I played Snake Pass recently, which is really an incredibly charming game, but its camera issues were almost inexcusable. I really do want more games like this, but they need to move forward and not just copy the past. Games always need to move forward, fixing the problems of the past and iterating on the good. Speaking of the good, let's end this out on a high note because, really, I do like this game. A lot. Number 3, Tim Schafer is one of gaming's finest auteurs. Now, okay, this is pretentious, but in the film world, there's this concept of an auteur. That is, the idea that the director of a film is the visionary who creates work with a set style or aesthetic. And now, of course, it takes hundreds upon hundreds of people to make a film, so this is kind of a touchy subject. And it's an even touchier subject in gaming considering how many developers it takes to bring a game to life. But if we were to hypothetically create a list of gaming's greatest auteurs, I think Tim Schafer might be number 1. Schafer, who served as Psychonauts' creative director, has a clear, defined style that runs through pretty much every project he's worked on. Whether it be the point-and-click goofiness of Day of the Tentacle or the inventive puzzling of stacking, his creative vision is unmistakable. And in that sense, I think Psychonauts could be his masterpiece. It's got a really clear stylistic vision, and a look that screams Nickelodeon meets Tim Burton. But, more importantly, it's a meaningful game about empathy. By going into the minds of the game's eclectic cast of characters, you learn what they're suffering from emotionally, and you set out to help them. Thematically, it's pretty unique compared to today's slew of vague power fantasies about good and evil. In that sense, I think it's kind of funny how Psychonauts, the type of game that developers tend to stray away from now in favor of realism, delivers a more meaningful, down-to-earth message than some of the most realistic-looking games offer us. You know, cheers to Tim Schafer and the team at Double Fine for that. Well, that's it for this episode. What game do you want to see me tackle next? Check out the list of games I'll be playing in the description. And hey, thanks to Joe for picking this one. See you next time.